Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more heart-touching love stories like this one. Everyone expected him to say yes. After all, she was the daughter of a billionaire. Beautiful, rich, powerful. Every man in the city dreamed of standing beside her. She was the key to an empire, a golden ticket wrapped in luxury and legacy. But when the cameras flashed and the boardroom waited in silence for his response, the young CEO stunned everyone. "No," he said, calmly but firmly. "I'm sorry, I can't marry her." Gasps echoed through the room. His father's face turned pale. The investors exchanged anxious looks. The billionaire's daughter, dressed in a designer gown, blinked in disbelief, her smile frozen in place. And yet, he meant every word, because just hours before that meeting, he had been sitting in a small cafe on the quiet side of town, sipping cheap coffee from a chipped mug, listening to the soft laugh of a waitress whose hands were still red from washing dishes. Her name was Lee Na. She wasn't anyone important in the eyes of the world. No designer clothes, no expensive perfume, no high-end connections, but she had something that no amount of money could buy: genuine warmth, honesty, and a strength that came from surviving tough days without losing her smile. Zhao Chen, CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country, didn't mean to fall for her. It just happened. It started with a coffee spill. He'd walked in after a stressful morning, the weight of business deals and marriage proposals clouding his mind. She'd accidentally knocked his drink onto his suit and apologized so sincerely, even offering her own tip money to pay for dry cleaning, that he couldn't help but smile. He returned the next day, and the next, not for the coffee, but for her. She always greeted him with the same tired yet warm eyes. And over time, their conversations grew longer. She told him about her dreams, about working double shifts to pay her younger brothers school fees, about the bakery she wanted to open someday, and he listened. More than that, he cared. For the first time in years, Zhao Chen felt like someone saw him. Not just the title on his business card, but as their connection deepened, so did the pressure from his world. His parents had already begun wedding discussions with the billionaire's family. To them, this marriage wasn't about love. It was a merger, a transaction, a bond between two giants that would secure their legacy for generations. And Zhao Chen, he was expected to play his part, silent, obedient, but he couldn't pretend. Not after the night he saw Lee Na crying quietly behind the counter, her apron stained, her hands trembling. He'd stayed with her until the cafe closed, listening as she shared the pain of a landlord threatening to evict her family. That night, he made a decision. He wasn't going to let this world turn him into someone who could ignore the girl who mattered most to him, not for status, not for wealth. So, when the day came for him to announce the engagement, he chose truth over tradition. "I'm sorry," he repeated, standing before the room full of shocked elites. "I've already given my heart to someone else." The billionaire's daughter didn't cry. She simply narrowed her eyes and said quietly, "You'll regret this." His parents refused to speak to him. The board panicked. Stocks dropped overnight, and the media went wild, trying to dig into the identity of this mystery girl who stole the heart of the most eligible CEO in the country. But Zhao Chen didn't care about the headlines. What he cared about was finding Lee Na that evening at the cafe, wrapping his coat around her shoulders and saying, "I chose you." Yet nothing good ever comes without a price. Just when he thought the worst was over, things took a turn. Lena disappeared. No calls, no texts. Her phone was off. The cafe owner said she'd quit suddenly, said something about an emergency back home, but the details were vague. Zhao Chen searched everywhere, used every contact he had, but it was like she'd vanished. That night, alone in his penthouse, he stared at the tiny paper receipt she once scribbled her dream bakery name on. His fingers tightened around it. Something didn't feel right. And then, a private message popped up on his phone. No name, no sender, just a picture. Li Na, tears streaming down her face, sitting in the back seat of a black car, and a message below it. Stay away, CEO. She's not yours anymore. Zhao Chen sat frozen, staring at the screen. Li Na, the girl who once laughed while wiping tables with a ragged cloth, now crying in the back seat of a luxury car, the kind of car that didn't belong in her world. His jaw tightened as he read the message again. Stay away, CEO. She's not yours anymore. The words felt like ice cutting into his chest. He tried calling her again. Nothing. Her number was disconnected. He even sent people to her old neighborhood, but her family had moved out overnight. No forwarding address, no goodbye, just silence. Something was very wrong. He didn't know who had taken her or why, but deep down, he feared the answer. This wasn't just about love anymore. This was about power, pride, and revenge. Behind closed doors, his family was furious. His father, Mr. Zhao, stormed into his office and slammed a stack of documents onto the desk. This is what happens when you let emotions cloud your judgment, he said coldly. The board is threatening to replace you. We lost 2 major investors. And do you know who's behind it? Zhao Chen looked up. Who? The Li family. He blinked in confusion. Li Na's family. They're not them. His father cut in sharply. The real Li family. The billionaire Li Xinyuan. Her godfather. The one you humiliated when you rejected his daughter. Zhao Chen's stomach dropped. She's just a waitress, he whispered. No, she's not, his father said, lowering his voice. You think it was a coincidence she ended up in your favorite cafe. You think a girl like that, smart, patient, full of stories, just happened to appear in your life. She was placed there. No. Zhao Chen shook his head. Li Na wouldn't lie to me like that, wouldn't she? His father asked quietly. Or maybe she didn't even know the full truth herself. The conversation left him spiraling. That night, Zhao Chen dug deeper into her past, using his private investigator to pull every record he could find. What he discovered shocked him. Li Na had grown up in a rural town, but at age 16, she was suddenly transferred to an elite private school in the city. Fully paid tuition, anonymous sponsor. Then, 2 years ago, she disappeared from all publics, records, only to reappear, working as a waitress in a neighborhood he often visited. Coincidence? He didn't believe in those anymore. Meanwhile, in a lavish mansion on the outskirts of the city, Li Na sat quietly in a locked room. She hadn't stopped, crying since they brought her here. They'd told her it was for her own good, that Zhao Chen was dangerous, that he was using her like a pawn in a bigger game. But she didn't believe them. Not until Li Xinyuan himself came to her. He was elegant, cold, and powerful. The kind of man who smiled with his mouth, but never with his eyes. You were supposed to stay in the background, he told her calmly, sipping his tea. Let his interest fade. Then we'd strike. But you, he glanced at her with quiet judgment. You fell for him. I didn't mean to, she whispered. But he was kind to me, not because of what I had, but who I was. And that's exactly the problem, he said, standing. Men like him don't really love girls like you. When things get difficult, they leave. I'm protecting you. Lena looked up, voice trembling. Or are you protecting your pride? He froze, but instead of yelling, He simply chuckled. "You're smarter than you look. That's why you were chosen." She realized then. He had been controlling the game from the start, from the school sponsorship to the job placement at the cafe. Everything was planned, and now he was using her as leverage. "Break his heart," he said coldly. "Disappear, or I'll destroy everything he owns." Li Na wanted to scream, but she also knew if she didn't play along, Zhao Chen's life would be ruined. And not just his employees, their families. Everything he built from the ground up would collapse. So she wrote him a message, one she knew would hurt. "Don't look for me. We were never meant to be. Forget me." Zhao Chen read it in his office, heart twisting. But even then, he didn't give up. He could feel it. Her voice didn't match the words. He knew her too well. And he could see the fear behind her eyes in that picture. That's when he made his move. He called in favors, hired the best cybersecurity team, and started tracking the anonymous number that had sent him the photo. It took days, but they found a location, an estate owned by a holding company linked to Li Xinyuan. He went alone. What he didn't know was that Li Na was being moved that very night, somewhere more isolated, somewhere she couldn't contact anyone ever again. The clock was ticking, and just as the guards loaded her into the car, a black SUV tore through the estate gates and screeched to a halt. Zhao Chen stepped out, his coat whipping in the wind, eyes burning with rage. "Let her go," he shouted. One of the guards pulled out a baton. Another moved toward him. Li Na screamed from inside the car. "No! Don't hurt him!" That was all Zhao Chen needed to hear. He charged forward, and then everything turned to chaos. The car door burst open just as Zhao Chen reached it. Lena's eyes widened the moment she saw him, bruised and breathless, but alive. Really there, like he'd promised he always would be. She tried to throw herself into his arms, but two guards pulled her back. Zhao didn't hesitate. He tackled the first man, took a punch to the side of his face, then grabbed the second by the collar and shoved him against the car. It wasn't clean or graceful, but it was enough. The moment she was free, Lena clung to him like a lifeline. "You came," she whispered through tears. "I told you," Zhao said, holding her close. "I'd always find you." But it wasn't over yet. Li Xinyuan stepped out from the shadows, calm as ever, with a cold smirk. "Touching reunion," he said. "But do you think this changes anything? You may have her now, but I still have power. With one call, I can ruin your company, your reputation, everything." Zhao Chen stepped forward, eyes sharp. "Go ahead, make the call." Li Xinyuan frowned. "You're bluffing." "No," Zhao said, pulling a small recorder from his coat pocket. "But you are." He pressed play. Li Xinyuan's own voice played aloud. His threats, his manipulation, even the confession of how he orchestrated Li Na's placement in Zhao Chen's life, all caught on tape. "You see," Zhao continued, "while you were busy trying to control everyone, I was busy protecting the woman I love." Sirens blared in the distance. Police lights flickered against the trees. "Game over," Zhao said softly. The police arrived just in time to see Li Xinyuan try to flee. He was arrested on the spot, charged with kidnapping, corporate sabotage, and blackmail. His carefully built empire started crumbling from the inside out, and by the next morning, news of his arrest was all over the media. Li Na was safe. Zhao Chen held a press conference, calmly explaining everything. He revealed the truth without painting himself as a hero. He didn't need to. His actions spoke louder than words. The world saw him for who he really was, a CEO who stood up for love, even when it meant putting everything on the line. Surprisingly, The public rallied behind him. Investors returned. The board withdrew their complaints. And the Goo Corporation, once again, thrived under his leadership. But none of that mattered to Zhao Chen as much as the quiet moments, walking hand in hand with Li Na through the park, eating simple street food together, or sitting on the couch at night while she rested her head on his shoulder. "I never cared about your status," she said one night. "Even when I found out who you were, I just liked you." He smiled. "I never cared about what you didn't have. All I saw was your heart." They built their life slowly, far from the schemes and lies that once surrounded them. Li Na enrolled in business school, supported by Zhao, but driven by her own ambition. And Zhao Chen, the man who once believed he'd marry for family alliances, now knew love was worth more than any business deal. There were still whispers. Still people who asked, "Why her?" Or, "How could you give up everything for a girl like that?" But Zhao always answered the same. Because she's not just a girl like that. She's everything. The story that had started with a CEO refusing to marry a billionaire's daughter ended with something far greater. Two hearts choosing each other against all odds, in a world that told them they never should. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was real. And that's what made it so beautiful. Love, after all, doesn't care how much money you have or where you come from. It just needs to be true, and theirs was.